me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Happy Monday, guys. Happy Marvel Talk. Welcome, movie fans, movie listeners, and just movie enthusiasts all over the world and here in America. This is the Cine-Men movie podcast. We are here to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the first of 3 Marvel movies this year. So we have a lot of Marvel talks, so let's just go ahead and get started. There'll be no movie news, no recent watches, no top 5, anything. We're just kind of getting straight into it. Honestly, it's a lucky we're even going to be doing this today. I'm joined with my friend Craig. What's going on, guys?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Can
no,
you hear
it's I can.
Okay.
Just one of those days, you know, where we're low. People have a lot of personal things going on, and you know, I'm excited to talk about Ant-Man today. It's just kind of one of those things where I got to make do.
Hey, man, I'm just glad you're here, because otherwise I'll be doing this show by myself right now. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania released February the 17th, 2023, starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Jonathan Majors, Catherine Newton, Bill Murray, William Jackson Harper, Corey Stoll, Michelle Pfeiffer, and one Mr. Michael Douglas. Directed by Peyton Reed, who I believe has directed the first 2 as well of the Ant-Man trilogy. Currently, this film has a 6.6 on IMDb, 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, 48% Metacritic, and 84 liked by the Google users. So, a lot of mixed reviews for this one. I think at one point this was sitting at almost Eternals level, which is kind of really shocking me, to be honest. But let's get into it. Craig, I want to, before we get into Quantumania, let me know your thoughts on just the first 2 Ant-Mans just in general, and go into general thoughts for Quantumania.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Rudd always been kind of you know, prior to seeing the first Ant-Man, you know, he was in, you know, kind of the smaller roles. He was always that funny guy. Really, honestly, wasn't that excited to see the first Ant-Man. It took me a while to actually watch it. And then this was kind of like I was all Marvel all the time.
Yeah.
But when I finally watched it, I was just like, man, it's a shock. Like, I didn't think this specific character would do this good in the movie. And then obviously Ant-Man 2 was kind of didn't live up to the hype of the first one. Still
Right.
solid. But I think it suffered the same kind of feeling as Black Widow, where the villain wasn't as big and bad as we had hoped. You know, we were getting Hydra with Captain America, and you know, some of these other movies we were getting, like with Guardians. It was just the villains were so much bigger compared to what Ant-Man was dealing with, and I think that's to no fault but kind of how they were wanting to portray them. So,
right. And then what's your just general thoughts on Quantumania before I'll give my thoughts?
General thoughts. I know people probably are going to dog on the CGI. I just want to start off with saying, you make a movie that is 98% CGI and see how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, I took that for what it was. They're trying to build this whole universe in a nothing but CGI. There's no real on location anything other than the initial part of the movie. So other than that, I think everything was good.
Awesome. My just general thoughts on it, the Ant-Man trilogy. The first one I didn't. I think that was the only Marvel movie I didn't see in the theaters, because it just didn't. You know, I think Ant-Man was even a harder concept than the Guardians, to be honest, because, you know, it's a guy that talks to ants.
Yeah.
You know, essentially. But it really shocked me. I thought it was actually a pretty cool heist movie for it to be a Marvel movie.
Right.
And then Ant-Man and the Wasp, I actually think was a little bit of a step up. I thought enjoyed it. Still had the fun Marvelness of what those films were in the Infinity Saga.
Right.
Kind of the jokiness, but still has part of the seriousness, and there was an even balance to this. With Quantumania, I like this movie. I don't think it's nowhere near as bad as everyone says it is. The CGI, yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, Craig, go make a $100 million science fiction film and see what you can do. There's definitely a lot of positives in this movie, but there's also some negatives I kind of want to talk about.
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, me and my friend we saw it Thursday night. I think you saw it Thursday night as too, Craig.
Yeah. Thursday afternoon.
Thursday
4
afternoon.
p.m. showing. I was the first one.
So I mean, I think you sent in the text thread. This is better than Wakanda Forever. I was just like, okay, all right.
Yeah. My wife, that's kind of what her initial reaction was, and I somewhat agree with her. I
Okay.
do think, Black Panther is special in its own right. But I think if Chadwick was actually a part of that sequel, I don't think any movie recently would have been able to touch it, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But with what they
Yeah.
were dealing with,
Right. I think with this movie, I think the biggest thing, I think all of us, Marvel fans and probably even general fans that going into this is, how are we setting up Kang? How is Jonathan Majors going to do as this character? And I'll just go ahead and say, I thought him, and I'll even say Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought they were like the best acting leads in this film.
Yeah.
I thought he was able to promote not only what this character is going to be going forward, but also the maliciousness and what he's able to be capable of. Now, I think there were a couple things that they didn't really show his like true aggression enough in the movie, but maybe they're saving that for later down the road. But overall, man, I'm excited for what they're going to do with Jonathan Majors in this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to show everything all at once. This is kind of, and I think that's one thing where this movie lacks is people are taking it as Kang's supposed to be this guy right now. And if you were to do that, Ant-Man's no longer a part of Marvel. Let's be honest. If you bring out the full power of what Kang is capable of, Ant-Man's no longer a part of Marvel. And, they had to find some common ground to make it believable, but also keep the story arc going and build upon what's coming. And I think that's what the critics were expecting. They say, oh, he's the next Thanos, and Thanos came in Infinity War, and right off the bat, dude's beating up Hulk, dude's killing Heimdall,
Yeah. But we had a lot to build up to that, because we first saw Thanos at the end of Avengers, the mid credit scene, and then we got a glimpse of him in Guardians, and that was really it until Infinity War. And so with this, technically we saw Kang at the end of season 1 of Loki. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it. But
I mean, technically you saw a variation of that
character.
That's He Who Remains. This is the Conqueror.
Yes.
So they have two different thought trains. They're two different people.
Yeah.
So you see what Jonathan Majors is capable of, but you don't really see that character.
Yeah, you're true. That is correct, because it's just like you said, it's just a variant of, especially when we talk about the mid-credit scene, there are tons of them.
Yeah.
That's just 2 out of who knows how many. But yeah, I mean, I will say the tonal inconsistencies, it was, it wanted to be funny, it wanted to be serious. I kind of just juggled that. I don't think it did it as well as the prior Ant-Mans.
No.
Paul Rudd was cracking jokes at Kang, and Kang was still Jonathan Majors was still doing the serious Kang look, and it worked for my audience. I don't know about how it worked for you, but I chuckled at some points, but it wasn't like, I'm not taking this as like, okay, he's going to kill someone in the next like 5 minutes, like Thanos would.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, like the jokes were Paul Rudd jokes, whereas like the first Ant-Man, they just had that aura where everything was kind of laughable. Like he's in a situation he's not supposed to be in. Whereas this one, he's he's been Ant-Man for a while. He's still that kind of same guy that is funny and cracks jokes.
Mhm.
And I think they even mentioned in the movie, like, in order to do this, you have to be able to crack jokes, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. And
Yeah. I don't know who he was. I don't remember who he was talking to, but like there was a line, something like that.
I think for this movie, I wish they would have, been lighthearted at the beginning and then went really kind of somber towards the end.
Yeah.
Whereas when Kang was kind of progressing, but I think the characters were really good. I mean, you have the jelly guy.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
whole part where they're meeting the quantum realm people
Yeah.
for the first time was pretty funny. You think they're being taken hostage and they're going to get killed and they're in a scary
Mhm.
situation when
Yeah.
really they just didn't
They
speak
just
their language.
Yeah, and then they just give him, which I thought was a cool detail to
Concept.
add. That it was a cool concept that you drink the stuff and you can hear in English or translate it into what they're actually saying, which I thought was a
Yeah.
cool idea. Yeah, there was a lot of cool like little mini characters, like you said, the blob guy. It the movie kind of, I think, and that's why they brought in Cassie, Scott's daughter.
Which I did
She
not
was.
like.
I was going to ask about that. She became like a political activist, and the whole the quantum realm people is kind of a metaphor for like just displaced people
Yeah.
almost to an extent. And so it's just like I get what they're doing, but like, we don't want to come to Marvel movies thinking about political messages,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which, I
we'll
mean,
go ahead and
like
talk about Cassie.
you can have a little bit of it, but I felt like
Yeah.
they were
That's a whole
really trying to
subsect.
push it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was like a whole subplot of this film basically.
For
And
Cassie and yeah.
yeah, what do you think about Cassie? I thought she didn't bug me, but it was just like it got to the point like when she was in the battle sequences, it's like okay, you're trying to have your moment type thing.
Yeah, I don't think the character was bad. I just don't think that actor fit her. I would have much rather had the girl they had in Endgame, which I know they're trying to go
Mm-hmm.
to somebody who may have a little bit more chops because they're going to have a bigger role. But
Yeah,
I don't like her. She's not. I don't know where she's from. I don't really care for her. But like you said, it felt like she was trying to be big for the moment when she didn't really need to be.
Yeah, Catherine Newton. She was in who plays Cassie. She was in Freaky, that Vince Vaughn horror movie from Blumhouse. She was in Detective Pikachu, Paranormal Activity 4, Blockers. So yeah, she's been in a couple stuff. I mean, Lady Bird, Bad Teacher.
Yeah.
So she's been in some pretty big stuff, and like I said, I don't think she was bad. I kind of just think the character was kind of written kind of bad. It was just like,
yeah, I could have been it too.
Kind of just sprung on us as like, okay, you're gonna have to deal with her basically. Yeah, going through, I really enjoyed honestly when they get sucked into the quantum realm. People are dogging the CGI. I thought that was actually a pretty great scene. It felt kind of like a roller coaster almost.
Yeah, it was almost kind of like when Strange was going through all of the different universes.
Yes,
but more so like a microscopic type thing.
Yeah, they kept getting bigger and bigger, and I really like the scene where Hope kind of grabs her parents or like tackles them in order to save them from getting hit in the ground or whatever. So
yeah, I had a feeling that the ants were going to be placed somewhere because you could see them falling with them, and so fast forward a little bit. We'll talk about that here in a second, but fast forward to, I didn't like how they kept, like half the movie was them like poking Hope Van Dyne about like, what are you not telling us? What do you?
Yeah.
And it's like they thought that was making it seem like Kang was this big bad dude.
Yeah.
When in all actuality, it didn't pay off in this movie. And I think that's what a lot of people might have hated is you spent a good portion of this movie with her like, I'm not telling you what's going on. My life down here didn't mean anything. It's over. It's done.
Right.
And you come to realize, through the storytelling that she kind of helped him become what he is.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not something you have to hide for 45 minutes to make it seem like Like if the first time you saw Kang, he immediately just offed one of them, that'd be different.
Yeah.
But when you first saw him, he was like, I need your help. I'm giving you the option to help me out here, or things could get difficult.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I enjoyed the flashback sequences. I thought they kind of brought a little bit more levity to the situation, especially with Michelle Pfeiffer's character. But yeah, I agree. I mean, they really, really just kept like hyping Kang up to be, this vicious killer, and like if you took Thanos and Killmonger together, that's what Kang is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't the case. And I agree with you, Craig. I mean, this is only one film out of like another 20 before we even get to Avengers Kang Dynasty. So, we're going to see him multiple times.
True.
But, you have to start this villain off somewhere. And I think this was a good starting point for him. What I was going to bring up was, in order to show his viciousness, it would have been a perfect idea to kill off either Michelle Pfeiffer or Michael Douglas as like a, because he kept threatening Scott with killing his daughter if he doesn't go into like the core of the energy thing in order to shrink it down so he could use it. So it was like,
even if it was by accident that he offed Michael Douglas, you know what I mean? Like say he shoots something and it blows up and Hope's right next to it. Like something. Give me some casualty in this movie, because like you said, or kind of like I said, the first time we saw Thanos, dude's killing people, and all you heard was, he's just this dude that is off to take half the universe. And Kang, you never got that.
And that, I'm not going to say it's a casualty of the film, but I just think it could have been done better. Like you said, it's an accidental death. Or I really thought when the ants came to back them up, like that would have been a perfect time to kill off Michael Douglas, like an explosion, or Kang was trying to hit Scott, but it like deflected and hit Michael Douglas. But it's just, there was not a lot of stakes in this film, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
for somebody who is Kang, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you got to give me something.
Exactly. Let's talk about this, dude. Like I heard something about this, but I didn't know what this was. MODOK. Hated him. Hated it so bad.
So I knew who MODOK was. I kind of knew the character back from the X-Men series back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who he was going to be.
Okay. I was going to say, did you know it was Darian Cross, or you just know the concept of MODOK?
I know the concept of MODOK.
Okay.
I had zero idea it was going to be Darren. And I just wish for I mean, he was good, but I think they tried to keep it as ungrotesque as possible, because MODOK's supposed to be this just very deformed, very, sick to look at kind of creature, and he wasn't. It was just a face on like a green screen, and obviously there's memes out there. I'm sure everybody's kind of seen that, but
yeah.
I don't think he's going to be around for anything else. No. He actually died. So
we're good on that. We're good on that.
It sucks. It's kind of like Taskmaster. Taskmaster is actually going to come back.
Yeah.
But these villains aren't just throwaway characters. You got to give them something a little bit more if you're going to add them into these films.
Yeah, but that's been Marvel's whole big thing, with the exception of Thanos, and I put Killmonger in there, even though he's only in one film. The villains in these movies are just, they don't have the threatening capabilities of what, a Joker would be in a Batman movie, or Steppenwolf from Justice League, or anything like that.
Well, not just that. It's like, as we progress forward, it just feels like there's no thought behind what these characters are.
Yeah.
Obviously Kang has bigger intentions, and MODOK's just kind of another one to be in there to be as like his assistant. But yeah, I mean, even going back to Killmonger, like, yes, Killmonger was a great character and Michael B. Jordan was great as Killmonger, he doesn't stick around very long.
Yeah.
It's just it felt like going back to like the original Captain America and Captain America 2. Like these characters and these villains were very well thought out, and like, the whole movie was kind of around them, and now it's just like, oh, they're here.
Yeah, and you know, we have Guardians in May, and I think a lot of people are looking forward to Adam Warlock, and I
think he's going to be halfway.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are excited for that, and I want that to really succeed. But if you look at the string of villains that we've had, you know, obviously this is, you know, they've really promoted that Guardians is going to be the last one of that trilogy, of that franchise. So unless they cross them over with the Marvels or something like that, I think, you know, it's a one and done deal. So
yeah, and you know, that would be something good. You know, say Adam Warlock is one of the more powerful villains, and he does come across and just completely, you know, gives the Guardians something, you know, because I mean, Batista's contract is up. I really think from the way the trailers look that Gamora is going to die.
Yeah.
So, you know, say you get 2 or 3 out of there, Drax, Gamora, and maybe one other.
I say Rocket because they're really promoting that.
Yeah, Rocket. So there's 3 right there. And, you know, then Warlock kind of goes off and the Marvels are trying to do something to, you know, that would be a good crossover. But,
yeah,
you know, who knows the route.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we got, and I'm glad the Marvels got pushed to November. That way we have like a little bit of lee room between these films.
Yeah.
And it's not Marvel like, all right, we're going to do another one in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Did you like that sequence of the shrinking of the core and it was like the Sea of the Scott variants?
Yeah. So I was curious, you know, you see the trailer and you're like, man, what's going on here? It's very weird. They didn't really give an explanation as to what, like, it was like, yes, it's a multiplying, or you know, you have the different variations of what your choices could be in this thing, but at the same time, you would think that they would all know why they were there and what was happening. And I mean, they kind of do at the end. It was just weird because then they all come together as one.
Yeah,
and
it looks the visual's cool. It looks like an anthill going up to try to get to the core.
It was funny that you kept seeing the Baskin Robbins Paul head.
I'll admit that got to me each time it showed up. It made me laugh. I don't think we even said spoiler alert, obviously, but we're just trying to talk about as much stuff because we're on like a limited time frame. I guess going forward, spoiler alert, or 23 minutes into this, if anyone's still sticking around. Let's talk about the final battle of, like, I guess, Kang's empire, and they're trying to stop him from actually taking off with the core device so he could travel. You get giant Ant-Man, you get Cassie, you get Hope, and all the place.
The very Star Wars Episode 9 ending.
Dude, I kid you not, dude. My friend went with me to see this, and he's never seen a Star Wars movie in his life. He turned, like, there's literally a cantina scene in this movie. He turned to me and said, "Is this what Star Wars is like?" I was like, "Yes, this is very much like Star Wars."
Yeah, because they're, you know, they get the whole send out the signal, like, we're greater than the one, you know.
Yeah,
like we're greater in numbers.
And it doesn't help it that she's literally a hologram telling that message. I'm just like, oh my god. Did you like? Oh, something we didn't talk about. Did you like the Bill Murray character, or do you think that was just like getting Bill Murray for Bill Murray purposes?
Bill Murray for Bill Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, the character, it was funny because obviously, with there being people down there, the whole thing about, like, she's like, "Hey, I had needs," and he's like, "Yeah," like, it was like very sexualized for a little bit. And I'm like, y'all can chill on this. Like
there are kids in this theater.
But, like, I mean, you don't want to make MODOK grotesque, but you want to sit there and talk about old people having, you know, Move on.
relationships. Yeah. And again, it played
And
up
then-
that whole Kang thing. And, Bill Murray is like, you left us and it's because of you that you're what he's after. And we had to suffer from it. It's like, okay, well, where's the payoff from that? Where's the consequences of her actions? And I guess it is the displacement of these people, but it's like, it would have been nice to see that if he's like destroying worlds left and right.
Yeah, I mean, they showed you a little bit of him destroying worlds, but give us a backstory of like her leaving and then him just like destroying
Going at
cities left and right. Yeah, give us like
Yeah.
a 10-minute clip of that. And I think
Yeah.
it would have really set the tone for Kang.
I agree. Scott versus Kang, I thought was actually a pretty cool fight,
Yeah.
And ultimately I'm glad that the message of like, you thought you could win, and Scott's like, no, I just have to lose. If I lose, you lose. And
Yeah.
just so desperate of trying to get that orb back.
Yeah, and I think after kind of everything with Thanos, a majority of these Avengers might have that same mindset where it's like, I saw what Tony Stark did in order to save the universe. If I have to make that same sacrifice, so be it. Like,
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like you might see a lot more of these. Like, that's how they go out, is like, I may not be winning, but as long as you're not getting the upper hand on something moving forward, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And I really hope they don't do the Tony Stark death scene here soon. They need to save that for one of the Avengers movies, not just throw it in there just because that we earned a lot to get to that moment.
Yeah.
And we gotta do a little bit more world building in this multiverse storyline to get to that.
We're 5-6 movies in right now. And I feel zero investment. Like, this was the first movie where I was like, all right, we have a path. Now let's find it and let's take it. And really that path started with a TV show.
Yeah.
And you go back and Black Widow had zero to do with it. Thor had zero to do with it. Black Panther had zero to do with it. And yeah, I get you're kind of trying to tell these solo stories, but I just wish they would have planned a little bit better instead of just throwing shit out there and hoping it stuck.
Yeah. Phase 5 movies. Like I said, we have 3 this year. Ant-Man, Quantumania, we're getting done with that one. Guardians is in May. Marvel's is in November. Then we have next year. We don't get another Marvel movie till May of next year with Captain America: New World Order, which is Falcon basically taking on the mantle.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts, which is the Harrison Ford, Florence Pugh kind of like ragtag team of characters.
Which
and
I had seen that Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier is going to be kind of the lead of the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, which would make sense. And then if this movie still comes out, Blade, September of next year. So, yeah. Scott basically at the end of the movie, Scott resumes his life, but man, goes back to rethinks. Did we do something wrong? Is this leading into something much more? And then it has that weird ending. And my theater was just quiet. Usually we get claps in Marvel movies. We didn't get nothing.
Yeah, and it's because, at the end, Kang doesn't die, obviously. He just kind of disappears. And so Scott's walking and he's like, Kang said that there was going to be more and they were worse than me or something like that. And he's just like, did I do something wrong? Did I do it right? And he's like,
nah.
I'm sure it's fine. Just Paul Rudd. That was kind of funny, but it was like, I agree. The theater's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's how you're going to end it? And I mean, that's just Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd, I guess.
Yeah, that's essentially it's a very Paul Rudd ending to a comedy movie, basically. And I mean, I will say that I think out of all the trilogies, this is definitely the most comedic of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go into the credit scenes. Spoiler alert, go see Ant-Man and join us afterwards. The first mid-credit scene is the Kang variants where, they say we killed one and we have to stop this Earth from basically trying to get to the multiverse. And that's essentially, and there's a bazillion Jonathan Majors on a green screen.
Yeah, and they're like, it just happened so quick. This end credit scene, and if I get things mixed up, I'm sorry, but they were like, they were saying something along the lines of like, we didn't get to kill him, who did? So they think that there's probably a greater threat out there.
Yeah,
and it's like they're wanting to get out there to prepare for that threat. When, in all honesty, it's like just Ant-Man.
Yeah, and and then probably the most. There was a lot of in my theater, and you can share your theater experience if you want. There was a lot of laughter throughout the film. Truthfully, but the post-credit scene that got a huge reaction, which is basically setting up Loki season 2 with him and Mobius saying like that's it, and Owen Wilson's like he doesn't seem that bad, and it's just like no, you don't know what he's capable of.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you almost feel like they're doing a better job of setting up Loki better than they are Kang. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and I think Loki comes out later this year. I think season 2.
Yeah,
I believe so.
I just want to go back though, real quick.
Yeah.
So before, Ant-Man's big and everybody's out there, they're all fighting, and then the ants kind of come out of nowhere, which I thought was the concept of them developing technology over thousands of years because they were in a different part of the quantum realm. Genius.
Yeah.
It's genius. It's using time manipulation and actually putting some thought into it. And, it's dumb, but at the same time, it makes sense.
Craig, I think you're on. Oh, okay. I thought you were on mute for a second, but go ahead.
Oh, no, my headset died. They kind of defeat Kang's army, and they're able to get into the ball. And then I agree with you that fight scene where it's just Paul Rudd and Kang it's probably one of the better, more intense, just mano-a-mano combat scenes in a majority of these films.
I mean, I like the philosophical conversations that they're having, and then he literally destroys Ant-Man's helmet, and it's a really cool,
inside view.
Yeah, of him stomping on it. I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this movie that I think both of us can agree that there was a lot of good points, but it's just, it kind of goes into my final question is like, has Marvel lost the magic? It's just you're kind of sitting there going like, it feels very much like a Game of Thrones episode where you're just like, okay, we'll see you here in a couple weeks or a couple months, and we'll see what happens next. It's not like you're not walking out of the theater feeling like amazed and being like, I can't wait to see what happens. It's more like, okay, what now?
Yeah, it's like, before you would feel satisfied with the current product. As well as looking forward to the next film, and now it's like, okay, that was a good film, but I feel like moving forward, the next one should be better. That shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't be thinking to yourself, the next one should be better. The next one should be the one that is going to set things off. It should be every one of these movies should matter some type of way.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. That's a perfect summation of like, okay, maybe the next one's better. That we never had that problem with Marvel. Even like maybe Thor: The Dark World, maybe one or two, maybe another one, but most of them are all home runs, and you're just like, okay, that makes sense. Let's see what happens in the next film. But now it's just like, okay, do I have to watch Agatha, Covenant of Darkness to understand what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say introducing the TV shows was a bad idea, because I mean, it has brought us some connectivity and some enjoyment, but it's like, am I gonna have to watch She-Hulk to understand the Marvels?
And even they've came out and said, they put out too much stuff.
Yeah,
they know they opened up a can of worms by doing all this extra stuff, and maybe that's a byproduct of the prior CEO who's no longer there. But yeah, I mean, if they were to just kind of come out and say, like, if they were just upfront with people and they were like, look, we tried to do too much initially. She-Hulk is kind of, we're done.
Yeah.
Moon Knight is going to get its own thing, but it's separate from everything else. Because
Yeah.
how are you going to tie in Moon Knight? How are you going to tie in, all these other shows that you're doing? Like, it's just not I feel like the mesh is so far out that no
Yeah.
matter how many movies you do, it's not going to make sense in the end.
I mean, I'm looking at the list now. The shows that are supposed to come out this year is Secret Invasion of Loki, which is Secret Invasion, and then Loki, which is like the first two shows of the year. Season 2 of What If, which I don't understand why we're even doing that again. Ironheart, which was, I'm willing to give that character another chance because there was just a lot going on in Wakanda Forever that she just didn't have her time in the sun. Echo, which is a spinoff of Hawkeye, which I don't know. Agatha, Coven of Dark Chaos, which is late 2023, early 2024, and dude, honestly, the only one I'm really excited about is Daredevil, Born Again, which is like early 2024. That's the only one I'm really like looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, none of those. If they were to come out and say, literally none of these are tied to the MCU, I wouldn't watch any of them.
Yeah, because it's just too much. It's almost. I think after She-Hulk, which I didn't even finish the show because I think you watched the last episode, so it was terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't finish it. I think after Wakanda Forever, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm just going to stick with the movies. I'm sure at some point in the movies, I know I'll maybe miss a little bit of the Easter eggs and what they're bringing in, but at this point, dude, it's just too much. It's way too much.
I'll stick with Loki. I feel like Loki is really tied into what the movies are presenting.
Yeah.
But Agatha, Coven of Darkness, I don't feel like that's going to have any payoff for the end goal.
No.
I feel like Loki is literally the only one that's going to have end goal payoff, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right, man, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Favorite scene? Is there kind of the thing that kind of like stuck out to you the most? Or you're just like, okay, this is cool.
I like this, the jelly guy. So, he's like, how many holes do you have? And he tells him he's like 7 holes. And, when he gets shot and then he's like, I have a hole. And you're like, okay, he's like just happy that he has a hole. But then it jumps to this giant mouth and he just eats that dude.
Yeah.
I was like that's perfect for this kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like, they kind of added other things that made it funny. The squid in the cup at the dinner scene with Bill Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Grows the
and it grows into a huge one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I'll say just the scene of them meeting back where he got stranded.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's like, this is where you left me.
Yeah.
That scene right there was just really good. When Jonathan Major was really delivering his, like, this is why I am what I am, and this is who I'm meant to be.
The movie's really good.
It was really good.
Yeah. I'm gonna say the when they get pulled into the quantum realm, I thought that was actually a pretty cool sequence. And probably when Ant-Man and Kang are talking, and which we didn't even talk about, but the whole now which Avenger are you? Did I kill you already? That sets up something cool. It's just like tell me more about that. Are we gonna see that?
He's like, are you the one with the hammer or
yeah. It's just like that. That's what we need. That's the best part. Yeah. And I'll agree with you. Like the jelly guy, they do a good job of giving these little minute characters like little like subplots, and it pays off in the end. So,
and if we could have gotten a 10-second clip of, they didn't put Tom Cruise in as Iron Man.
Yeah.
For Doctor Strange, but if we would have just gotten somebody else in an Iron Man suit, or give me Matt Damon as Thor and Loki, what I mean? Like,
he's the real Thor in this universe. Yeah,
as the real Thor fighting them, would have been absolutely hilarious and a payoff.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's coming, maybe, but it's just like when we're sitting here, and even if all four of us were sitting here, we come up with great ideas. It's just like, we'll pay us and we'll give you those ideas for free or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just like, it can work.
Just put me a part of it, and we'll
help you out. All right, man, let's go ahead and read this thing out. I'm gonna give it a 7. I don't hate this. I don't love this. It's kind of the borderline tier Marvel. I kind of like the first two better than this, but I'm excited for what Jonathan Majors is bringing to the MCU. There are a lot of good moments in this, but at the end of the day, by the time we get to the Marvels, are we going to remember like, oh yeah, Quantumania came out this year, Yeah. So I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's on par with every other film that's come out since Endgame. Aside from No Way Home, which I think was carried more so by the nostalgia.
Yeah.
But it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's not a terrible movie like they're giving it. It was a joy to watch initially.
Yeah.
But it's not phase 1 through 3 where you're like, man, I can sit down and watch these movies 3 times over preparing for the next movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not
exactly.
They don't have that it to them anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we've said, I think eventually this was going to happen with this franchise. You have to have a lull at some point if you're going to keep going. But yeah, it's kind of depressing, but at the same time, it was inevitable, obviously, especially after Endgame, that wrapped up that whole entire storyline.
Just like Thanos.
Exactly.
Inevitable.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, this is at 47%. I would say 70, maybe 65%. It does not need to be at 40% at all. 47%.
Yeah, I would say around, if I were to grade this on a scale, I'd give it around a 78. It has its high points with Jonathan Majors and Ant-Man really going at it. It has its low points when they're just kind of picking around what the story arc is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's our grades. We're both giving it a 7. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania is in theaters right now. Go check it out. Send us some emails of what you think about the movie. Next week, The Princess Bride. Rewatched it over the weekend, so it'll be an interesting conversation. Craig, I'm sure you've seen this multiple times at some point.
Yeah.
Probably don't even need to rewatch it. It's probably.
No, it's a family favorite. So.
Yep. I rented it from the library. You can watch this on Disney Plus. So go check it out if you have Disney Plus. Yeah, man, that's gonna do it for us today. I'm sorry this is not as long of an episode as we usually do, but we got things going on, and at least we got to do an episode. So,
yeah. I mean, hey, we got to the meat potatoes. Next week we'll come back with it. It's
just got us off off week, I guess you would say. Yeah, we did a 40.
I still think the conversation was good. We didn't give you all the side dressings, but you still got the main part of it. We're here for the movie, and that's what we gave you. Exactly.
And ultimately, we did almost a 45-minute episode, which is longer than what we were originally going to do. So, all right, guys. I'm Zach. This is Craig. We'll see you next week for The Princess Bride here on the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. Bye, guys.
Later.